here it was talking about Marco Polo, which is interesting because Marco Polo's book talks about how he visited the Tartars and went into their land. But here it relates, Marco Polo relates that the Tartars are so clever and ingenious and so sagacious in investigating the nature of things that they can raise darkness whenever they will. And he relates the case of one who, by means of this art, escaped with difficulty from robbers who had surrounded him. Also, that a Tartar army, being once defeated and nearly put to flight, had recourse to the same art to stop further losses, and by enchantment caused a thick darkness to overspread the enemy's camp. We might also venture to declare the name of a standard bearer who performed this miracle and disappeared with all his followers from before the eyes of his persecuting foes. Prester John, the tributary of the Emperor of the Tartars, will explain to us the mystery of the before-mentioned miraculous disappearance.
The word phoenix was Old Phoenician and it means red gold.
According to the testimony of numerous writers of romance, was a native of Tartary and had a romance with the daughter of the king of Cathari, who had a stone which she could vanish from the sight whenever she felt inclined, merely by putting it into her mouth. With this talismanic stone in the mouth, the organ of speech, or in the hand which guides the pen, Dante, Petrarch, and Boccaccio, also 100 more, were able to vanish from before our eyes.
And philosophers had got a little bit fed up with the church propaganda about the Philosopher's Stone being some silly device to turn base elements into gold and whatever, and he thought he'd publish material and put the record straight in the public domain. So in 1667 in Amsterdam he had a work published called Secrets Revealed. And in this he discussed the Philosopher's Stone, its nature, its qualities, what they knew about it. But most important, he made this point. Our stone is nothing but gold. Our stone is nothing but gold. It's gold digested to the highest degree of purity and subtle fixation. We call it a stone only because of its fixed nature, because it resists the action of fire as successfully as any stone. In species, it's more pure than any gold that it comes from, but its appearance is that of a very fine white powder. That was the Philosopher's Stone, straight from the hand of the most famous chemist, alchemist of his time. We go back 200 years, we go back to the 15th century. We can look at the last testament of Nicholas Flamel, probably the best known of all the great alchemists of all time. A fellow who spent 20 years from a very poor base studying his science and ended up probably as the greatest and wealthiest benefactor that France has ever known. He made the point on the 22nd of November 1416 when writing his last testament, exactly the same. Our stone is gold, but it's perfectly prepared gold. It's a fine powder of gold. That is our Philosopher's Stone. So we have a whole new perspective here. We have a perspective that says the Philosopher's Stone, despite all the propaganda, despite all the church has done to try and make it look silly, is not about turning anything into gold. It is gold. It's gold in the highest possible, purest form that it ever could be. And that white powder that we looked at earlier was exactly that. That was 24 karat gold.
And what is this miraculous stone? It is the Word of God. The stone is Christ. And the angels taught that secretarian who visited them at all times that the ancient Word of God is still preserved among some people of Eastern Tartary, with the relative worship by correspondences, and those angels who had spent their days of their mortal lives there affirmed that it is the ancient Word. Prester John once sent the Emperor Frederick a present of 3 valuable stones, but the monarch had no idea of how to make use of them. Prester John's lapidary addressed Frederick one day as follows: "Sir, the first stone is worth your best city, the second is worth your finest province, and the third is worth more than your whole empire." Thus he took hold of the 3 stones, and the virtue of the last concealed him from the view of the emperor and the people. So the lapidary vanished from the sight and carried back the stones to Prester John, because Frederick too did not know how to make proper use of them. And Prester John gave him the 3 stones as a gift, and the guy up and disappears into thin air, and the king's like, "Nah, get these stones out of here. I don't want anything to do with this. I'm going to disappear next." So he sent him back to Prester John.
What's the gold that the Philosopher's Stone makes? The Great Enlightenment. Not the great enlightenment of money and wealth and riches and a lump of gold. The great enlightenment of wisdom and learning and intuition. That's the real Holy Grail. That's the true enlightenment.
The stone is Christ.